The training range at dawn looked like a miniature battlefield. Captain Stevens, a lean man with calculating eyes, had designed the course to test every aspect of a sniper's skills. Obstacles, moving targets, changing weather conditions, and scenarios that required split-second decision-making between civilian and hostile targets. Sarah arrived at 0545, 15 minutes early, to find she wasn't alone. 12 other soldiers had gathered, all of them sergeants or corporals with combat experience. She was the only private, the only woman, and, clearly the youngest person there. The whispers and skeptical looks told her everything she needed to know about what the others thought of her chances. "Attention!" Captain Stevens barked, and the group snapped to formation. "Today you'll be tested on precision shooting, target identification, and tactical decision-making. This isn't a competition against each other. This is about meeting a standard. Pass or fail, no middle ground." He gestured to the first station. Station 1, 1,000-meter shots at stationary targets. You get 5 rounds. 4 hits minimum to advance. Wind is variable, ranging from 5 to 15 miles per hour. Sarah's mouth went dry. 1,000 meters was further than her shot on the ridge, and the wind conditions would make it exponentially more difficult. She watched as the first shooter, a staff sergeant named Collins, took his position. Collins was methodical and confident, adjusting his scope with practiced ease. His first shot hit center mass. So did his second and third. His fourth shot was slightly off due to a wind shift, but his fifth was perfect. 4 hits out of 5. He had passed. One by one, the other candidates took their turns. Some passed easily, others struggled with the changing wind conditions. 2 failed completely, missing 3 shots or more. When Sarah's turn came, she was the only candidate who hadn't shot yet. "Martinez, you're up," Captain Stevens called. Sarah approached the firing line, aware that every eye was on her. She settled into prone position and began her routine: check the wind flags, estimate range, adjust for elevation and windage. Through her scope, the target seemed impossibly small, a mere speck at the extreme range of her rifle's capability. Her first shot was high and left, catching the edge of the target ring. A hit, but barely. She heard someone mutter "lucky" behind her. Sarah ignored the comment and focused on her breathing. The wind had shifted slightly, and she compensated before taking her second shot. This one was better, striking closer to center. Her third shot was even better. But, as she prepared for her fourth shot, a strong gust of wind swept across the range, rattling the flags and making precise calculation nearly impossible. Sarah waited, feeling the pressure of watching eyes and ticking time. The wind subsided slightly, and she took the shot. It was her best yet, striking dead center of the target. One more shot to go, and she needed it to hit for a passing score. As she prepared for her final shot, Captain Stevens spoke quietly beside her. "Pressure getting to you, Private?" Sarah didn't take her eye from the scope. "No, sir. Just waiting for the right moment." She felt the wind pattern, sensed the small changes in air pressure that her father had taught her to recognize. When everything aligned, she squeezed the trigger with the same smooth motion she had used on the ridge 3 days earlier. The shot was perfect, striking the exact center of the target. 4 hits out of 5, with the last 2 being better than anything the other candidates had managed. "Pass," Captain Stevens announced. "Move to Station 2. Station 2 tested target identification under pressure. Candidates had to distinguish between hostile targets and civilians in a series of rapidly appearing silhouettes. Miss a hostile, and you fail. Shoot a civilian, and you fail. The targets appeared for only seconds at a time, sometimes partially concealed or in confusing positions. Sarah's law enforcement training before joining the Army served her well here. She had been trained to make split-second decisions about when to use deadly force, and that experience translated perfectly to this exercise. She correctly identified 12 targets, shooting only the hostiles and holding fire on the civilians. Station 3 was the most challenging, a moving target scenario where candidates had to engage multiple targets while the targets themselves were in motion. This required leading the target, calculating not just where it was but where it would be when the bullet arrived. The first target was a vehicle moving across the range at approximately 30 miles per hour. Sarah had to hit the driver through the windshield while accounting for the vehicle's movement, bullet travel time, and wind conditions. She tracked the vehicle through her scope, calculating lead time and trajectory. When she fired, the vehicle was exactly where she had predicted it would be. Direct hit on the target zone representing the driver's position. The second moving target was more complex, a target that moved erratically, changing direction and speed to simulate an insurgent trying to avoid being shot. This required Sarah to adapt constantly, tracking the target's movement pattern and predicting its next position. She fired when the target made a turn that she had anticipated based on its previous movement pattern. Another hit. By the time she completed all 3 stations, Sarah realized she was the only candidate still in the exercise. The others had either failed one of the stations or been eliminated for not meeting the minimum standards. Captain Stevens approached her as she secured her rifle. "Congratulations, Private Martinez. You've passed the qualifying test for special reconnaissance training." Before Sarah could respond, General Patterson emerged from the observation post where he had been watching the entire exercise. "Outstanding performance, soldier. Captain Stevens, what's your assessment?" "Sir, Private Martinez demonstrated exceptional marksmanship skills, excellent target identification abilities, and superior performance under pressure. Her scores were among the highest I've seen in 20 years of conducting these tests." General Patterson turned to Sarah. "How do you feel about your performance, Private?" "Satisfied, sir, but not surprised. I knew I could make those shots." The general smiled. "Confidence is good, as long as it's backed up by ability. You've certainly demonstrated the ability. Are you ready for the next phase?" "Yes, sir." "Good. You'll be transferred to Fort Bragg for specialized training. 12 weeks of intensive instruction in advanced marksmanship, wilderness survival, infiltration techniques, and small unit tactics. It won't be easy, and not everyone who starts the program finishes it." Captain Stevens handed Sarah a folder containing her new orders. "You'll be joining Delta Company, Special Operations Training Battalion. Report to Sergeant Major Williams on Monday morning." As Sarah reviewed the orders, General Patterson continued. "This training will prepare you for missions that regular infantry soldiers never see. Deep reconnaissance, target elimination, intelligence gathering in hostile territory. You'll be operating alone or with minimal support in some of the most dangerous places on Earth." "I understand, sir. Do you?" "This isn't about glory or recognition, Martinez. Most of what you'll do will never be officially acknowledged. Your successes will be classified, your failures could be fatal, and the enemy will do everything in their power to capture or kill you." Sarah thought about her father, about the sacrifices he had made for his country. She thought about her squad mates who were alive because of a single shot on a ridge. She thought about all the soldiers who might live or die based on the intelligence she could gather or the targets she could eliminate. "Sir, every soldier who puts on this uniform accepts the possibility of dying for their country. What you're offering me is the chance to live for it in a way that really matters. I'm ready." General Patterson extended his hand. "Welcome to Special Operations, Sergeant Martinez." Sarah looked surprised. "Sergeant, sir? Your promotion came through this morning. Turns out exceptional performance in combat situations can accelerate advancement. You're no longer the backup soldier on the ridge, Martinez. You're now part of an elite group of warriors who operate in the shadows to keep others safe." As Sarah shook the general's hand, she felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. The scared private who had been relegated to overwatch duty was gone. In her place stood a soldier who had proven herself capable of making the impossible shots when everything depended on her accuracy. That evening, Sarah called her father one more time before departing for her new training. When she told him about her promotion and assignment, she could hear the pride in his voice. "Your grandfather would be proud," he said. "He always believed that the Martinez family was meant to serve something bigger than ourselves. I won't let you down, Papa. You already haven't, Nija. You saved those soldiers with that shot. Everything else is just building on that foundation. As Sarah packed her gear for the journey to Fort Bragg, she reflected on how much her life had changed in just 1 week. A single moment of precision shooting had transformed her from an overlooked support soldier into a candidate for the military's most elite units. The backup soldier who had made that shot on the ridge was about to discover just how far exceptional marksmanship and unwavering courage could take her in the unforgiving world of special operations. 3 days after the incident on the ridge, Sarah was summoned to the command tent. She had been expecting some kind of debriefing, but nothing could have prepared her for what she found waiting inside. General Patterson sat behind a folding table, his weathered face studying a file that Sarah realized must be her personnel record. "Sit down, Private Martinez," he said without looking up. Sarah took the chair across from him, trying to keep her nervousness in check. In the 3 days since the shooting, she had replayed the moment over and over in her mind. The image of the falling insurgent haunted her sleep, but she knew she had made the right choice. Her squad was alive because of that shot. General Patterson finally looked up from the file. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, and seemed to see right through her. "Tell me about your father," he said. The question caught Sarah off guard. "Sir?" "Your father." Sergeant First Class Roberto Martinez served 2 tours in Vietnam. Wounded in action near Da Nang in 1969. Purple Heart recipient. I knew him. Sarah's eyes widened. Her father had rarely talked about his service, and she had no idea that General Patterson might have known him. "You served together, sir?" "Different units, but our paths crossed. He was a hell of a soldier. Saved my life once during a firefight outside Saigon. I was a young lieutenant then, fresh out of West Point and full of book knowledge but short on real experience. Your father pulled me out of a kill zone when I froze up under fire." The general closed the file and leaned back in his chair. "I've been wondering if that kind of courage runs in families. Based on what I saw 3 days ago, I think it does." Sarah shifted uncomfortably. "I was just doing my job, sir." "No, Private. You were doing much more than that. You made a decision that most soldiers with 10 times your experience would have struggled with. You took a shot at extreme range, under pressure, with lives hanging in the balance. And you didn't miss." General Patterson stood and walked to a map mounted on the tent wall. It showed the region where their base was located, marked with various tactical symbols and notes. "What you don't know is that this wasn't an isolated incident. Intelligence suggests that insurgent forces have been planning a coordinated attack on our supply routes through this valley. The machine gun nest you eliminated was just one piece of a larger operation." He pointed to several locations on the map. "We believe they have similar positions set up here, here, and here. All carefully chosen to be invisible from ground level but potentially vulnerable to elevated observation. We need someone who can identify these positions and neutralize them if necessary." Sarah began to understand where this conversation was heading. "You want me to find them, sir?" "I want you to do more than find them. I want you to join a special reconnaissance team that I'm putting together. Small unit, high mobility, designed to identify and eliminate these hidden threats before they can disrupt our operations." The offer was everything Sarah had dreamed of since joining the army. No more backup duties, no more being overlooked and underestimated. This was a chance to prove herself on the most challenging missions the military had to offer. But there was something in the general's tone that suggested this wasn't going to be easy. "What would this involve exactly, sir?" General Patterson returned to his seat. "Extended patrols in hostile territory. Long-range reconnaissance missions. Situations where you'll be on your own for days at a time, with no backup and no support except what you can carry. It's dangerous work, Private. Not everyone who volunteers makes it back." Sarah thought about her father, about the stories he had finally started sharing with her before she deployed. Stories about young soldiers who went into the jungle and never came back, about the weight of responsibility that came with carrying a rifle in combat. But she also remembered what he had told her about seizing opportunities when they came. "I'm interested, sir." The general smiled for the first time since she had entered the tent. "I thought you might be. But, before I officially offer you the position, I need to see if that shot on the ridge was luck or skill. There's a training exercise tomorrow. Advanced marksmanship course, designed for special operations candidates. You'll be competing against soldiers with years more experience than you have." He handed her a folder containing details about the exercise. "This isn't just about shooting, Martinez. It's about thinking under pressure, adapting to changing conditions, and making split-second decisions that could mean life or death for your team. If you pass, you'll receive orders for specialized training. If you don't..." "I understand, sir." "Good. One more thing." General Patterson's expression became serious. "I want you to understand what you're volunteering for. This isn't regular Army duty. The missions you'll be assigned to will be classified, dangerous, and often conducted without official acknowledgement. If something goes wrong, there may be no cavalry coming to rescue you." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "My father taught me that freedom isn't free, sir. Someone has to be willing to pay the price." The general nodded approvingly. "Report to the training range at 0600 tomorrow. Captain Stevens will brief you on the exercise." "And, Martinez?" "Yes, sir?" "Don't let the pressure get to you. You've already proven you can make the hard shots when it matters. Tomorrow is just about proving you can do it consistently." After Sarah left the command tent, she walked back to her quarters in a daze. The other soldiers in her unit looked at her differently now. Word of her exceptional shot had spread throughout the base, and she could hear whispered conversations that stopped when she passed. In her bunk that night, she called her father using the satellite phone reserved for family communications. When she told him about the general's offer, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Mija," he finally said, using the Spanish nickname he had called her since childhood. "This is what you wanted, isn't it? The chance to prove yourself?" "Yes, Papa. But I'm scared." "Good. Fear keeps you alive. But don't let it paralyze you. When I was your age, I thought courage meant not being afraid. Took me years to learn that real courage is being afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway. Do you think I can do it?" Another pause. "You have your mother's steady hands and your grandfather's eyes. Both served you well on that ridge. Trust yourself, Sarah. You're ready for this." As Sarah prepared for sleep, she cleaned her rifle one more time, checking every component with the methodical precision her father had taught her. Tomorrow's test would determine whether she remained a backup soldier on routine patrols or became part of an elite team conducting missions that could shape the outcome of the conflict. She thought about the insurgent she had killed, wondering if he had family who would mourn him. The weight of that decision would stay with her forever, but she knew it was the price of protecting others. Tomorrow, she would find out if she was strong enough to bear that weight again and again. The backup soldier was about to discover if she could become something more. The morning sun cast long shadows across Camp Henderson as Sarah Martinez adjusted her rifle strap for the third time. She had been assigned to backup duty again, watching from the ridge while the main squad conducted their reconnaissance mission in the valley below. At 22, Sarah had been in the Army for 3 years, but she always seemed to draw the short straw when it came to assignments. Her commanding officer, Sergeant Williams, barely looked at her when he handed out the day's orders. "Martinez, you're on overwatch. Stay sharp up there." The words stung more than they should have. Sarah had scored higher than most of her unit in marksmanship training, but somehow she was always relegated to support roles while others got the action. The ridge overlooked a strategic valley that intelligence suggested might be used by insurgent forces to move supplies. Sarah's job was simple: watch, report, and only engage if absolutely necessary. She settled into her position behind a cluster of rocks, adjusting her scope and checking her radio connection with the squad below. Through her scope, she could see her fellow soldiers moving carefully through the terrain below. They were good soldiers, but Sarah noticed things they missed. Small details that could mean the difference between success and disaster. A glint of metal where there shouldn't be one. Movement in the brush that didn't match the wind patterns. Footprints in the dirt that were too fresh. Hours passed with nothing but routine chatter on the radio. Sarah's legs cramped from staying in position, but she remained focused. Her father, a Vietnam veteran, had taught her that patience was a sniper's greatest weapon. You wait for the right moment, he used to say. And, when it comes, you don't hesitate. Around midday, something changed. Sarah noticed movement on the far side of the valley, about 800 meters from her position. Through her scope, she could make out figures in civilian clothing, but their movements were too coordinated, too purposeful. They were setting up something behind a ridgeline, hidden from the squad below but visible from Sarah's elevated position. She keyed her radio. "Base, this is Martinez. I have eyes on possible hostiles, grid reference 74 Alpha." Sergeant Williams' voice crackled back. "Martinez, we don't see anything down here." "Are you sure?" Sarah adjusted her scope, zooming in further. What she saw made her blood run cold. The figures were setting up a heavy machine gun nest, perfectly positioned to ambush the squad when they moved through the next section of the valley. Her unit was walking into a trap. Base, confirmed hostiles setting up firing position. Machine gun nest, approximately 800 meters from my position. Squad is moving into kill zone. Negative, Martinez. We have no visual confirmation. Hold your position. Sarah watched in frustration as her squad continued their patrol, unaware of the danger ahead. The insurgents had chosen their position expertly. From the valley floor, the machine gun nest was completely invisible, hidden behind natural cover. But, from Sarah's position on the ridge, she had a clear line of sight. The radio crackled again. This time it was a different voice, deeper and more authoritative. "This is General Patterson. I'm monitoring this channel. Martinez, describe what you see." Sarah's heart skipped. General Patterson was a legend in their division, known for his tactical brilliance and his willingness to listen to soldiers in the field, regardless of rank. She took a deep breath and gave a precise description of the enemy position, the number of hostiles she could see, and the type of weapon they were setting up. "Range to target," the general asked. 812 meters, sir. Wind is minimal, approximately 3 miles per hour from the southeast. There was a pause. "That's a difficult shot, soldier. What's your confidence level?" Sarah looked through her scope again. The target was at the extreme range of her rifle's effectiveness, but she had made similar shots during training. More importantly, if she didn't take the shot, her squad would walk into certain death. "High confidence, sir. I have a clear shot on the gunner. You're authorized to engage. Take the shot." Sarah's training kicked in. She controlled her breathing, feeling her heart rate slow. She adjusted for wind and distance, finding that perfect moment between heartbeats when everything was still. The target came into focus through her scope. She could see the insurgent's face clearly now, a young man about her own age, concentrating on setting up his weapon. For a split second, Sarah hesitated. This would be her first kill, her first time taking a human life. But, then, she thought about her squad below, about the 5 soldiers who would die if she didn't act. Her finger found the trigger. The shot echoed across the valley like thunder. Through her scope, Sarah saw the insurgent gunner fall backward, his weapon spinning away from its mount. The other hostiles scattered, their ambush broken before it could begin. "Target down," Sarah reported, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Confirmed," came the general's voice. "Outstanding shot, soldier. Squad, you can advance safely now." As the day wore on, Sarah remained in her overwatch position, but everything had changed. Word of her shot spread quickly through the radio channels. An 800-meter kill shot that had saved an entire squad was the kind of marksmanship that legends were made of. When the squad finally returned to base that evening, Sergeant Williams approached Sarah's position on the ridge. His usual dismissive attitude was gone, replaced by something like respect. "Hell of a shot, Martinez," he said simply. "Hell of a shot." But Sarah barely heard him. She was thinking about the young man she had killed, wondering what his story was, what had brought him to that ridge with a machine gun. She had done her job, saved her squad, but the weight of taking a life settled on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. That night, as Sarah cleaned her rifle in the armory, she didn't know that her single shot had set in motion a chain of events that would change her military career forever. General Patterson had made a note in his field journal: Private Martinez, exceptional marksmanship under pressure. Potential for special operations. The backup soldier on the ridge had just become someone worth watching.